English is so popular these days that most people just take it for granted. Whether they are native speakers or second language learners, pretty much everyone knows some English. But there are many facts and features of English that you're just never taught in school and that you could never learn just by speaking it as a native language. So here are the 10 things you didn't know about the English language. If you go back, say, 1,200 years, English was very, very different. So much so that it was a completely different language. In fact, you would likely be unable to read any of it if you saw it written. English was introduced to Britain over 1,500 years ago when continental Germanic tribes invaded and seized much of the land, and of course, they brought their language with them. This language was Anglo-Saxon, or Old English as it is called today. Old English was almost entirely Germanic in its vocabulary, had 3 grammatical genders, an incredible array of so-called irregular verbs, and a significantly different word order from the conventional modern English one. Consider the following sentence in modern English. The king gave the sword to the servant. Well, in Old English, it could look and sound like this. Them Theo gave se kunig fat swerd, which literally means, to the servant gave the king the sword. This, of course, is very different from modern English, but it doesn't just stop there. Many Old English words seem familiar but mean different things as time has gone by. For example, the modern English word fowl refers to a type of bird, specifically domesticated bird stock such as chickens or hens, but not eagles or blue jays. However, in Old English, fowl simply meant all birds, no matter the type, and bird itself only referred to a young bird or nestling rather than all birds. This allows us to see the radical changes that have taken place within the English language over the course of more than a millennium. You probably don't know this, but some of the most basic and everyday words you use are not English in origin, but rather Scandinavian, or more specifically, Old Norse in origin. Beginning in the late 8th century, there was a series of small to medium-scale Viking invasions of England. Eventually, the invaders became settlers and there was trade, commerce, and even intermarriage between the Vikings and the English. The influence of this on the English language was incredibly impactful. One of the possible reasons as to why the fundamental grammar of Old English changed was that the intermingling of Old Norse and Old English led to what is called morphological leveling, which means the disappearance of complicated endings of words, allowing for a simplification of things. Additionally, because of this intimate contact between these closely related groups, many of the core and common words in the English language are derived from Old Norse and remain with us today. Words such as give, want, anger, take, die, weak, get, and even the verb are and the pronoun they are ultimately derived from Old Norse, and there are many, many more. We might not realize it consciously, but the spirit of the Vikings still flows through our tongues. For a great deal of time, Britain was the province of the Anglo-Saxons, but in 1066, William of Normandy, otherwise known as William the Conqueror, successfully conquered England and thus began a period of Norman French influence on English that would last 300 years. During this time, the favored language of the English aristocracy was French, though the peasants under them continued to speak English. This language was called Anglo-Norman. It was only the rise of nationalist feelings in the late 14th century during the infamous 100 Years' War waged against France that brought back the desire for a landed English-speaking nobility. However, during this long linguistic interregnum, thousands of French words entered the English language, which in many cases ended up replacing the original English word. In some cases, there came to be word pairs such as pork and pig, and mutton and lamb, the former being the French words for the animals that were eaten by nobility, and the latter the names for the animals that were raised as livestock. Another example of this would be the Old English word herre, which meant army, and this was subsequently replaced by the French word army. Today, there are so many French words in the English language that we hardly think of them as French. Words such as nice, which is ultimately derived from the French and originally meant foolish or silly, but in time changed meaning. It is difficult to comprehend the legacy of William the Conqueror, but it is surely one that will forever be with the English language. English has always been an adaptive language, taking in whatever words have been useful, and this has led to a state of affairs where English has the largest number of words of any language, purely in terms of lexicon. Of course, most of these words are never used, and are largely unrecognizable by most native speakers. Words such as limacine, meaning of or related to slugs, lucubrate, meaning to write or study hard at nighttime, mountebank, which refers to a charlatan, and thothean, meaning related to the underworld and spirits and deities under the earth. Such words rarely, if ever, see use, but they are there for the picking when the wise and learned so choose, a testament to the richness of vocabulary of the English language. English is spoken in so many countries that it is hard to keep track of how each individual speaker speaks, or even how groups of people speak. But the truth is, most people are not aware of the change that goes on in a language, and this includes English. For example, in the United States and many other places, native speakers no longer distinguish between the phrase "there is" and "there are," and are just as likely to say "there is cars" as they are to say "there are cars." Such changes come about without conscious knowledge, and we are sure to see many more in the future. For more top lists just like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to check out our other lists. And thanks for watching, and thanks for learning.